All right, enough is enough. We got to make our own list.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Well, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Jaron. That's Landon. We got to get into it today.
Yes.
All right, another list is out, and it's coming out with the top college football quarterbacks in the sport, and it was a top 55, and this one was by Sports Grid. Yeah, it was a weird space, and I tried to find like a list from. I know Sports Grid isn't like a big name or anything. I tried to find like a bigger list for big names, or with a bigger name company, and they usually stopped at 10 or 15. And I don't think anyone, even the biggest Mississippi State fan out there, would have Blake Shapen in there. But top 50, I definitely would think, okay, he's got to be in this list. Where would they put him at? Well, they did 55, and he's not on it anywhere. So I don't know what they've been watching.
I don't either. And yeah, top 55 is weird. I've read this list. I was just kind of clicking back through it again. It's all over the place. I mean, also, after you get out of a top 5 or top 10, you're just throwing darts at a board, honestly.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not, anyone who's listening to this, depending on which episode you watch, either you're going to think I love Shapen or I hate him. I mean, it kind of varies one way or the other, which I think kind of explains that he should be toward the end of this list, somewhere in those 40s and 50s,
right?
Because that's where you get the guys who are capable starters who will have very good games and some very bad games. And I think that's kind of what Shapen is.
Yeah, I mean, looking through the list, I really don't have a problem with the top 12 on the list. Now, the one thing I will say is the DJ Lagway at number 3, that's going all off of hype because of what he did. Because even if you look at his numbers last year, for the whole year, it wasn't great. In the last 4 games when they went undefeated, his numbers still aren't great. So that's going off potential. Obviously, Arch Manning at number 4, that's also going off potential. I think Carson Beck, even though he didn't have a great year, was kind of low. I mean, they have a number 9. But that's just trying to get nitpicky with those top 12, and that's just a preference thing. But you're right. I mean, I don't see how Blake Shapen isn't at least top 50. I would have him in that 40 to 50 range. I mean, for his career, he's thrown for 6,548 yards, 44 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, completing 64.3% of his passes. So he's been a really effective passer. Now, if your pushback as to why he's not top 50 is, hey, in 3 seasons, he played 18 games. So 6 games a season, that's fair. Only 1 season in his entire career has he played the full season, and he played 13 games in 2022. They went 6-7 that year. So if you want to say that's a fair statement. Like, hey, he has an injury history.
Yeah, he does have an injury history. But and just going off this list, some of these people that they have at the end of this list, we don't necessarily have much of an injury history, but we have enough history to know they're not very good quarterbacks.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I don't know. Yeah, he should be in that 40 to 50 range. Yes, injuries are a concern, and he's thrown some bad games. He's gone out there. He's had some really bad stretches, but there's been other times where he's looked very good. And he looked very good in the 4 games last year in Levy's offense. I mean, if we're going off potential, there's some potential. Granted, a lot of these people that they have later on these lists are just that we've mentioned potential because they're a 5-star at some point. And that carries with people long after you've proven that was a missed evaluation in your high school days. And, Shapen was the 3 stars, and he, kind of fought his way into different places and had some very good moments. So he's not going to get that default respect that some people have.
Yeah, I mean, he was on pace for nearly 3,000 yards passing last year, about 24 touchdowns on the season, and then less than 10 interceptions. That's a really good season. I mean, that's what that's what he was on pace for. Now, his one complete season might be his worst season as the starter. 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 63% completion, 2,790 yards. His 2023 season was probably his most prolific. Now his completion percentage was down to 61.7%, but he had 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Again, only made it 8 games, so he didn't make it too far. And then last year, as you mentioned, he was playing really well in those 4 games before getting injured. So if your injury concern is the reason why he's not in your top 50, and you're just like, I can't put him anywhere because I can't trust it. Okay. And they already showed earlier that they're going off potential in some of these areas. And so, and that would make sense to me. But if you're just going off who's the top 50 quarterbacks, if they get injured, they get injured, but who's your top 50, he's got to be on that list.
Oh, he has to be. And, I don't know how high you go with him, maybe, mid 40s, maybe even early 40s, that kind of range. And, hopefully he comes out in the fall and makes us all look dumb and he plays like a top 20 quarterback. But I don't know obviously something like this, what spurred this discussion for us is something that's borderline clickbait. So, it's they're kind of trying to make people mad, or at least get everyone to click through. And so that's some of it. I think they just start going off, oh, this guy's got some hype. This guy did this. But yeah, injury history is the only reason you can keep Shapen off of a list.
Well, and some of the guys that I would probably have him over, Mark Gronkowski is the number 30-40s with the Iowa Hawkeyes now, but he was at South Dakota State. And so we don't know how good of a player he is at the FBS level. We know how good he was there.
I was going to say, if he's going to go play quarterback at Iowa, probably not very good.
Right. And then, Jackson Arnold, again, we talked about him last week, where Arnold has the better potential. And so if it's off potential, again, we get it. And that's kind of what this list has shown. But Shapen has been the better quarterback to this day. Mm-hmm. So that was one that was kind of, and then again, potential. Bryce Underwood is number 38. He's the 5-star number 1 player out of high school. I get it, but again, hasn't played. Maybe this is a hot take. You let me know. Ooh. I'm taking Shapen today over Gunnar Stockton.
Yeah, me too. And we kind of talked about that a little bit when we were discussing the schedule, that I guess Gunnar Stockton has some potential, but what I saw last year doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, in my opinion. Right. He may be good, but he's not ready yet. So yeah, it's at least a coin flip. Which day who do I want? If it's not every day I'm picking Shapen, it's at least a discussion I would have to have.
Right. And Thomas Castellanos, who's now at Florida State, obviously had the great start of the 2024 season, but he fell off. And yet he's at 42. We haven't seen Shapen fall off. And then Kyron Drones, we thought was going to be, this really good player, could maybe get Virginia Tech into the playoff discussion. He didn't play well at all, but he's at 43 on the list. And so there's some guys that I think are on here. Steve Angeli, he's the projected start at Notre Dame. Again, he hadn't played at all. How is he over Blake Shapen? And he wasn't, I don't believe, unless I'm wrong, I don't believe he was a 5-star or anything where you could make that argument that, he at least was this highly recruited guy. Yeah, he's a 3-star. So I don't see how he's up there.
Me either. And that Drones one was one of the ones that jumped out to me that I thought Shapen should be ahead of. Funny enough, that one full year Shapen played, Drones was his backup at Baylor.
There you go.
So there's connections to where he has beat out some of at least one person on this list before. And there's so many just names on here where it's almost like at one point they just started looking at highly, big name programs and we're like, whoever their quarterback is, that's who is on this list. There's no way he's not here. I feel like that's what we've come around to every different way. It's how is he not better in these people's eyes over some of these guys who have not played at this level or have played and played poorly?
Yeah, and just kind of wrapping it up, Preston Stone is on the list. He's at Northwestern. He was so bad he got benched at SMU, and Kevin Jennings obviously was really good, but he got benched. Ty Thompson was, again, a highly recruited kid that wasn't very good at, I believe he was at Oregon, and then came to Tulane, was the backup last year, didn't play good in the bowl game, and so we'll see what he is. But yeah, there's several guys on here. Chandler Morris is at 54, and he should really be a top 30 quarterback the way he played last year.
He lit it up last year. That's another thing. How is he that low?
I agree. All right, well, coming up next, we got to talk about defensive improvements even more. Isaac Smith had a pretty good conversation where he talked about it. It's on 3 where he kind of did a Q&A about some of the differences with the defense this year or what fans can expect to see this year. So we'll dive into that. That's coming up next.
There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Gametime. Gametime makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front, no surprises at checkout. And why I love using Gametime is priority last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You can grab last minute seats for any game and save big with their zone deals. Peace of mind with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee you can book with total confidence. The lowest price guarantee means I never have to worry about overpaying. And take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right. All right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right. So Isaac Smith, he kind of talked about the defensive improvement or hope for the improvement this year. He did a Q&A. It's over on the Maroon White Daily, so you can check that out. But it's on 3, so we won't spoil all the stuff that he talks about. But one thing he did talk about was he's been playing some linebacker this year in practices. And he was kind of asked about his role this season and what's that been like. He said it's a lot similar to last year, but he's just focusing more on linebacker. A lot of games last year, he played the outside piece a good bit and that middle safety piece. Right now, he's just trying to learn as much as he can at any position because you just never know where you're going to have to be at. And that's obviously true. You just never know where you're going to be. But he's a guy that is very versatile, and you can put him all over the field, and that's a very good asset to have.
Yeah, very versatile, very good tackler. I mean, we saw that last year, and bringing him closer to the line of scrimmage will probably help shore up some of the, the run defense. And then the big thing that he talked about that really caught my attention, something we brought up many times, Levy brought it up, that the defense, they have a lot of new bodies, and a lot of those bodies are very big. And he's like, he said, I think we only had like 18 sacks as a team last year. I'd love to see one of these new guys come in and make a name for themselves if they don't have one.
Yeah.
And that's
8 sacks.
First of all, that's a great quote.
It is great. That is a great quote. But he's right on the money. 8 sacks is all you had. That is insane stat to think about. And he was asked about what the difference is with this of this defense, and we've talked about this. He loves the size that they brought in up front. The guys last year were pretty good and big, but these guys have something different about them. He said, I love the fact that they've come in and are working hard. They know that we've got something to prove this year. That is what we've talked about, the size and also now the depth that they have.
Yeah, depth and playing like you have something to prove. And if you do those things, I mean, again, we've said it before, we're not expecting this to be a top 20 unit or anything, but you have to make the improvements. And again, it could just be them, hyping up themselves a little bit. The good feelings of spring football just got everyone's optimism flowing, but it sounds like they're taking the right steps about how to get getting bodies in here, getting different bodies in, moving people into new places, both with Isaac Smith and Burnside moving to a new place. I mean, we're trying new things, getting more fast, more athletic, getting bigger players. It's exciting to not know what this defense is going to look like right now, because it seems like it's the good version of not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're right on the money with that statement. And I thought his best quote was when he was asked about what is the winter like and what the offseason preparing for the season's been like. And he said the main thing is they've been focusing on their culture. He talked
Yes.
about having a little more than 40 something new players and a lot of new coaches on the team. He said, you've got to start somewhere. And I think building that bond with each other first is going to play a bigger role in the season. He said, nobody wants to go 2-10, especially me and the guys that were here. So just preaching to the new guys that we've got something bigger to prove. They came in, worked hard in the winter, and now we've just got to put a great spring together, great summer and fall camp, and we're right there. He said, everybody worked hard this offseason, and the strength coaches put us through it this winter, conditioning, weight room-wise, and nutrition as well. That played a big part of it. I love that quote because it talks about how culture is such a big thing. And it's such a big thing with a lot of teams, or just every team, really.
Yeah.
And when you go 2-10, it's easy to be like, whoa, I know what you, especially the first year of the coach, I know what you're trying to build here, but it ain't working. I'm bailing and doing my own thing. And so I think that is so important to keep that culture and for your veterans to buy in and keep the culture.
Yeah, that's the big one. And that stuck out to me too. Culture, that can be a game changer. I mean,
Right.
it honestly, it gets memed at this point, but heat culture in the NBA, they built something there and everyone bought in, and it's a thing. And if you get something like that happening where everyone just bought in day after day, knows what the goal is and how to get there, I mean, it might not be an overnight change, but it'll slowly start to make those incremental improvements that lead to the big changes. And I mean, you're talking about going through in the weight room. That's step one.
Yeah. Yeah. And after a rough season, that's usually what you get. You get put through the ringer in the weight room. You get put through the ringer in the weight room regardless, but after you have a rough season, it's a little excessive. But no, you're right. And it is just so important to keep that culture and keep what is Jalen Hurts always says, keep the main thing the main thing. That's what he always says. And that's right. You have to kind of keep that mindset and, understand that 2-10 happened last year, but we got something that we still believe in. Now, you have another bad season this year. It's going to be hard to keep that culture because you're going to have guys at that point be like, okay, this ain't working. You got to try something else, or we're heading out, or we're just going to mentally check out.
Mm-hmm.
And so you like to see that they're talking about the culture and keeping that there. And you also like to see where they talk about how they're really hitting the summer hard, or I say summer, just the off season in general hard, because you can't let 2-10 happen again. You just can't do it.
No, you can't. And and culture in the weight room is where that starts to not letting it happen again, along with bringing in a whole new defensive line, essentially, and more rotational players to where you're not getting worn out in the third quarter anymore, because you've been rotating frequently and everyone seems to be buying into just everything, all the new little changes that were made from every part of the coaching staff that we've heard about and all these interviews that have come out. It seems like everyone's bought in 100% to what the changes that were made over this offseason, and that there wasn't really that doubt, like, is this going to work? What do I need to do for me? We're not letting this happen again.
Yeah, no, you're right on the money with that. And I do encourage people to go check it out. If you don't subscribe to them, because he does go in depth about several different players. And I just don't want to spoil all that. He also talked about adding 2 former head coaches as analysts, Paul Rhodes and then Mike McIntyre. And what's that? Yeah. So what's that been like? And that's a really good quote. So there's a lot of good stuff in that, and you definitely should check it out. Because it's like we've talked about many times. It's a big season this year. You don't have to go from 2-10 to 7-5, 8-4. That's not what we're saying. But you need to start showing things are heading in the right path, because, like Smith said, with the culture, that's going to start going away if you don't take the necessary steps that you have to take. But all right, well, coming up next, we got to talk about some women's basketball. We've focused on the men with the transfer portal. The women got hit hard this past week, and so we've got to talk about that. That's coming up next. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jaron. That's Landon. We got to talk about the women's transfer portal. The men, we've talked about a lot. They've been hit hard. They've lost, 6 players to the portal. Hubbard has obviously entered the draft, but is maintaining his college eligibility. We think he'll be come back. but the women got hit hard too.
Yeah, they got hit real hard, losing two big pieces, both figuratively and literally. And Ocott, I mean, we talked about, I mean, that those two hurt, and it was back to back, like one day, one day, one the next day. So I mean, you lose two starters to graduation, and now two other starters in the portal, and two freshmen substitutes that got played a decent amount also in the portal. It's, I mean, team had a great season, and now it is just a mass exodus, and it makes you wonder what's going on.
It's crazy because they've made, two NCAA tournaments in the last 3 years. They've been to the second round both those years. They've won 22 games, 23 games, 22 games. It finally feels like they have, after Vic Schaefer left and had Mississippi State as one of the best teams in the country year in and year out. When he was there, he leaves to go to Texas, and it felt like you were just spiraling trying to figure out who the next coach was, and it seems like you have that with Sam Purcell. And then, like you mentioned, you get hit where you lose your top 4 players, and that's just rough. And Medina Ocott, I think, is the biggest one because she has so much potential. We saw her in that first game against Cal, and she was just excellent in that game. And that's the thing you worry is, and I hope this isn't the case, but it's got to go through every Mississippi State fan's mind. Has it become a stepping stone university? Because I mentioned Vic Schaefer, obviously he was excellent at Mississippi State, but as soon as Texas came calling, he's gone, and he had them as the number 1 seed and in the Final Four, which is what he had Mississippi State in, twice, I think, in his 8 years or however long he was there. They were winning 30 games. They were obviously winning 20-plus games almost every year. I think they won 20-plus games. So he was there. They won 30-plus games 3 times, I think. And they had the number 1 seed twice. They had the number 2 seed once. But he used it as a stepping stone to go to Texas. No problem. I get it. But has that become the case for Mississippi State? Is it now a stepping stone, not just job, but also for these players where they're like, oh, we'll play well here, and we'll go play at UConn, or we'll go play at South Carolina or whatever. So we got to see where they end up. Those 2 players go. But I feel like a lot of teams are going to be after Ocott, big teams.
Yeah, I do too. And that kind of can go back to the discussion we had yesterday about paying for facilities.
Right.
Like, does some of that money need to go into NIL? So the players like this aren't leaving after a good run to go cash in somewhere else. Now, we don't know for a fact that's what's happening, but when you lose a starter off of a tournament team, it's usually because there's a big bag waiting for him somewhere.
Yeah, and it's just tough because, like, we talked about this leading up to the NCAA tournament run where they just kind of got a bad seeding in terms of if you were one of the 8 or 9 seeds, you were losing that next game because the 1 seeds were so good. And obviously UConn won the national championship as the number 2 seed. But if Juju Watkins doesn't get hurt, does UConn beat USC? I don't know. I mean, they were playing amazing, so maybe they do. But the point was, if Mississippi State's a 5 or 6 seed, they might make the Sweet 16 instead of losing in the second round. Maybe they get hot and they can make an Elite 8 run. But it was just a tough spot to be in, especially after the season you just had, because it was a really good year going 22-12, and your reward is losing your top 4 players. I mean, that's brutal. And those are 3 of those are the only players that average double digits.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing if you lost your top 4 players and they were 4 graduates. That's one way. But when they start going in the portal and it's people that you look at them and it's like, these are the people we're going to continue to build this program around. It's not like these are your starters that are only starting because you didn't have anyone else to put there. These are like legitimately some of your best players. It just, I mean, but a coach and fans have got to be wondering, what are we doing here? How do we stop this from becoming a yearly or every other year thing where the players we brought in that are doing great work on the court, having huge games in the tournament, just leaving? I mean, I don't know you got to change something.
Well, and the Powell one is so confusing because she's been there 3 years.
Yep.
She has started 98 out of 99 games. So it's not like she's just, been on the bench. She's been playing well, but she's not getting starting minutes. She's been a starter And she's been playing 27.8 minutes per game.
A lot of minutes.
Now, Okot, it's her first year. It kind of makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
it sucks because she's the one I think has a ton of potential. But at least it's like, okay, she's only been here a year. This girl's been here 3 years. I mean, and she started almost every game, and she's the one that leaves.
Yeah, I mean, both of them make you ask the same questions, but for very different reasons. Yeah. It's like, what happened with Poet? I mean, you have to think with the other losses due to graduation, these two were going to be, your team essentially. Like these were your two leaders up next year, and they both had to seed the depth chart. Be like, this could be our team, and they both said, no, it's not. We're gone.
Right, and she's from Mississippi. That's the thing. She's from Mississippi, and it was kind of feeling like, okay, Powell and Okot, that's your foundation that you're going to build on. Okot's going to be your inside presence. Powell is shooting 37% for her career from three, shot 40% her second year, 39.8 her third year. So you're going to have this inside out game. It was going to be, obviously she's probably not the one that's going to be like running the whole show, but you're going to have a little inside out between those two, and you build around them. And then I believe you mentioned it, but they also lose the two freshmen on top of that. So those players were reserves, but you also still don't want to lose freshmen because, especially when you're losing all these upperclassmen, you had to have something to build around, and your freshmen are now gone too. But the Powell one just doesn't make sense to me, and there must be something going on that we just don't know about. Whether it's NIL, maybe it's something else. It could be something completely different. You just never know.
No, you don't know. And the two of them, like you mentioned, that looks like your foundation for the next year, and then Okot maybe the next 3 years.
Right.
And, you're with those, you're like, okay, maybe these freshmen step in, bring in 1 or 2 people from the portal. We're back in the tournament next year. Now you're basically building a team from scratch.
Right. And you mentioned with Okot, technically next year she's a senior.
Oh, yeah.
But she was, I believe she was a junior college player, and I think that moves over. Yeah, I believe that moves over.
Next 2 years, not 3. I was thinking previous.
Yeah, I can't remember if she was. I knew she might not have been a junior college player. I can't remember what she was, but because I know she came from Kenya. I believe she might have played for maybe a university over there, and so I don't really know how all that works.
Years, this and 1 more year.
Right. I'm not sure how that works if you play it for the country or anything. But regardless, she's only been here a year. Again, you can make sense of it. The Powell one is the confusing one, but
either way.
All right. Yeah, big losses. You got to figure, and again, like the men, you got to figure out in the portal. So we'll see if they can do that. But thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. There's my social media at That's Landon. You can check him out on social media as well. Locked On Mississippi State. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff. But until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.